Meanwhile, this half hour, want to take some time to introduce you to the new president of Kellogg Community College, Mark OConnell. He joins us in the studio this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Richard.
Thank you for the time today. You are not new to the college, are you?
Not at all. I started there 1998, but I've actually had the pleasure of working for all three presidents previous, and it's been a great learning experience, and it's really enabled me to have a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge.
I bet. Yeah, that it is sometimes common, I think, in these circles that folks move on. Their careers take them in other directions, and so sometimes you wish you could go to that person on campus and say, what do we do back in such and such? Kellogg can do that.
Absolutely. It's an interesting, my background's in finance, and as we've had some very challenging times with the economy, obviously when the economy gets so strong, students have great opportunities to work, and you see them taking less classes and staying working. And so I think it's really challenging for the college because it impacts the revenue that comes in. So when you look at what happens with the economy and look at what happens with enrollment, you have to be very, very careful. And remember that your revenue comes really twice a year. It's known as fall semester and spring semester.
Right. It slows down in the summer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because the observation has been if the economy isn't so hot, then enrollment generally is up. Do you see that?
Yeah, it really is interesting, and we saw it. We saw the trend moving, and it's really driven a lot by our manufacturers. When you see our manufacturers hiring our students directly, even before they graduate, you see that labor and the demand for skilled labor, especially. So we've really, we're working hard to get those students on a shorter path and trying to get them to our manufacturers and to our employers in a much straighter venue. So it's really interesting where the governor's gone with working with the high schools and the K-12s and offering incentives, financial incentives to pay their tuition their junior and senior years. That's called early college. And we are working with all of our area high schools and have many of our students enrolled rather in dual enrollment or in early college. So it's really interesting trying to get that path started even earlier while they're still in high school.
Right, and get them started thinking about what it is they might want to do and take the path. I remember, when I was a sophomore or junior in high school, the question was, have you decided what you're going to do, what school you're going to go to? Now it's talking about what you might want to do with yourself.
Yes,
at that level.
It's really gotten pushed down. I mean, they really get the students at a younger age to start thinking about it. But even if you want to transfer, I mean, a lot of students want to go to a four-year college. We get that all the time. We've got a block of transfer credits that they can start working on their junior and senior year. Right now, the governor's, through his incentives, is paying for that fifth year of schooling free. So for a parent who doesn't have to take that tuition dollar out of their pocket, if you look at the amount of credits they can have starting their junior year, starting their senior year, going that fifth year on campus, and then being ready to transfer, those students have really quite the edge. And those transfer credits are transferring then to the state universities and the area universities here locally. So great opportunities that weren't available when I went to school.
Right. Yeah, it's changed, hasn't it? 8:14, we're here with President Mark OConnell, Kellogg Community College. We're back shortly on WBCK.
I remember.
15 WBCK, Mark OConnell is here, President, Kellogg Community College, having just assumed that position not too long ago. When you do that, when you become a president, are you immediately expected to offer a vision and a direction? How does that work?
Well, it's really interesting because I've been the vice president of the college for so many years, and because I worked with, again, three presidents previous to me, I really have a good understanding of what needed to be done. And when the board approached me about even serving as an interim, I had a list of things that what I would call low-hanging fruit, things that I wanted to work and fix right away. And we got started down that path, and we saw the college start to move forward, and get some traction. So I think that, looking at one person is one person. It takes all of us to work on every aspect of the college, from the finance to the classroom. All of those pieces will make a difference. So I have great support by our staff and our faculty, especially because so much of what we do is, and really the bottom line is student outcome, student learning. So the classroom is the number one priority piece that we have, and that's really the reason why we're there, to give the students a low, affordable cost tuition and get them in and give them a really high quality opportunity of education so that they can take that and find a job, rather it be transferred for a four-year degree or a career and technical education position within a certificate of 18 to 24 months.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest challenge to doing that these days for community colleges in general and Kellogg, would you say?
Probably the biggest challenges is just making sure that we have the math and reading skills at a level that we can accelerate that process and help them. And we do that by some testing, try to see where they're at, to try to make sure that if we need to upgrade those skills, we actually have what we call the bridge, and we can identify if the student needs some accelerated help, provide that as part of their experience at Kellogg, and then move them directly into their general study pieces or their career and technical education pieces, so that we can move them through the system as quickly as we possibly can. Like I said, there's just a real demand out there for positions, and especially in the skills trade area. It takes time to get that skills trade and the technical education done, and like I said, it's just the demand. People are retiring, and there's not students coming out enough to meet those needs.
We speak regularly with one of the observers of the manufacturing economy in West Michigan, and he has said that several times now, that there are skilled trades positions available now that pay in the upper five figures, and we don't have enough skilled people to assume those positions. Is that an opportunity that you see community colleges and other educational entities seizing quickly?
I think that's a great role for us at Kellogg. As you know, we're putting an 8,500 square foot addition onto the Regional Manufacturing Technology Center. That really was driven by our major employers out there, Denso, and the partners that we have at Fort Custard. Through the visionary process of the Tax Increment Financing Authority, really they've been helpful in supporting, because we've been so fortunate to have our staff get both federal and state training grants for equipment. We've been so successful at that, we've actually, as that equipment's come in, it's displaced other equipment and training. So we've run out of space. So I guess that's a good thing to have. And we're going to have that ready by the end of May, early June. And again, just try to stay ahead of the curve of what's going on and get that new equipment in place. And again, work with our manufacturers. It's interesting. You see the production schedules and the production lines, and you see how busy they are, and it's really impressive. I went to one of our graduations in December for one of our programs out there, and Denso had hired all of the graduates before they even graduated.
Wow.
So it was, again, it's just, when that tire hits the road, it's really good, and to see those graduates and see and know that they're already working, what a great feeling.
We're talking with Mark O'Connell, president of Kellogg Community College. We'll come back and expand on those thoughts here in just a second. 22 WBCK. Mark O'Connell is here, president of Kellogg Community College. So we were talking about the notion of skilled trades and the opportunities there. And have we done a good enough job of indicating to young people that those are options? I mean, we put a lot of value and expectation on the traditional college track. Do you think we've overstated that sometimes?
I think it has, but I think as we look at the jobs in the career and technical education field, there are incentives that are going on currently as we work with our high schools, as the high schools work with the private sector employers, and actually get that awareness going earlier in the middle school and in the high school. We see a large transition of interest for that career and technical education path. So clearly, I think you have a transfer path, a normal path of a 2 to transfer to a 4-year degree, and then you've got the career and technical education path, which could be, like I said, 18 months to 24 months. We see a lot of interest in that, and I think, again, that is a path that can be paid for by the state, so that the tuition for those students, again, taking classes in a career and technical education path, their junior and senior year, and then their 5th year, We're working right now with the Career Center and the welding program there. Believe it or not, we put $500,000 a couple of years ago into upgrading and creating more welding lab space for the students. You think everything's robotics, but quite frankly, you still have to have welders, certified welders, and those manufacturers, they hire those certified welders as soon as they can complete their certificate. So again, getting the Career Center involved early, moving them from that point, the junior and senior year, so when they take that 5th year, they've almost got their welding certificate. They finish up and go right in versus they would start that when they completed high school. So again, you see this shortened path model, and it's starting to work more effectively.
That's it. And that speaks volumes for somebody who wants to get going on a career.
Absolutely.
A short path is interesting. One of the things that I think is a trend in community college circles is to become a 4-year institution or offer 4-year programs and thus drop the community from the name. Is that something that is appealing to you?
Well, I think, again, you look at the niche and you look at the demand and you see the process. Again, the community colleges here are focused on 2-year transfer. I mean, that is our mission, working in the community, doing skilled trades training. There, again, are some interest out there. There's been a lot of discussion about the community colleges running special areas like a bachelor's in nursing, a BSN, where the geographic of the community college is not necessarily all served in a facility sense on a 4-year degree. It's interesting, as you know, with online learning, there's a lot of different ways now. You don't physically have to come into a classroom.
Right.
So, but again, our base model here is 2 years certificate, 2 years transfer, and that role in our community and that role feeding our 4-year schools has been a very effective model here in the state of Michigan.
How's the situation with Miller College affecting KCC? Has this been difficult, or is this just a little blip in the road?
We're working with Miller. We were actually in a meeting yesterday with the Miller College representatives. We're working on the teach-out program with Western so that those students who are in the pipeline will have a smooth transition with Western and getting their degree finished up. And then I believe the plan is for Miller to be out of the facility by the end of June. And then, again, making sure that those students transfer, get the teach-out program through Western and successfully get and complete. We are working closely, again, with our students because some of those students were dual enrolled, and those students will look at a different path. Now, Western has a BSM program. Other schools have BSM programs for nursing. So, again, we're working to try to make sure that the students understand what their options are. And, again, we have a really good communication with Miller, so that's working out very well.
It just seems like a tremendously unusual situation that has evolved from that, in that you don't hear too much about colleges going away, and this seems like a unique situation.
I think it's tough, but at the same time, universities and colleges are no different than any business. It's extremely competitive, and it has a lot to do with financial aid and processing. But again, it's with online learning and all the discounts that are out there for students to shop around. You have to have your best game on to make that work. It's worked out. It did work out very well. It obviously didn't, in the end, work out in the model that they hoped. I think there's still some opportunities out there. We would like to see a local BSN program here in Calhoun County and in our community, and we'll continue to strive to see how we can link up with somebody to have that, so that our residents who want to get their associates in nursing can have that opportunity to get their BSN program without leaving the greater Battle Creek area.
One of the things, too, before you go, that we've heard fairly often is that the state doesn't fund public universities and colleges as well as it should. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's tough. I think, first of all, the governor is giving the community colleges a little bit more money each year. We're moving that model forward. It's a three-legged stool. I mean, the state, you have the state revenue coming in state aid, and then, of course, we have our local taxes, and then tuition. So one of the things that we can do is adjust our tuition. Our tuition is extremely affordable. If we look at schools very similar to Kellogg, we're at the bottom. So we pride ourselves, the board especially prides themselves to have the lowest tuition possible. And so we're able to do that, yet keep that experience and educational opportunity at a very high level.
I imagine that's a balancing act
Yeah,
that's constantly going on.
Absolutely. As the finance person, I can tell you it is.
Right, that's right. We appreciate the time you've given us, and let's chat again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting us over.
Thank you. Mark O'Connell, President, Kellogg Community College. 8:20.